Welcome to our fourth 1890 Teaching Capacity Building Brown Bag Faculty LCT Brown Bag Development Seminar. And the last one we had last month, we had a very, very lively discussion, and we want to continue that discussion. Here I'm on the Langston University campus, Langston, Oklahoma, and we have a lot of students present, and you can't see them right now, but I'm going to show you the students. So let's give them a hand. I'm going to do better than that. Okay, so Brian, can you go ahead and put the PowerPoint up, please? I'm Dr. Olympia McGowan, Director of the Learner Center Teaching Partnership Grant. We also have Dr. Neil Nablock at Purdue University, who is one of the co-directors. Let's give him a hand. We have Dr. Philip Lewis, that's also one of our LCT faculty coordinators that works on our coordination of our faculty seminars with Tulsa campus, and also one of our facilitators for today. We also have Dr. Esters, Levon Esters from Purdue University. That's one of our faculty trainers. And Brian Haynes, who is also one of our presenters today, also from University of Kentucky. Let's give him a hand. Since we're about 10 minutes behind, everybody clapping here, I want to give all of the participants a hand. I can't introduce you all. I know I have some logged on from Alcorn State University. I probably have some logged on from Arkansas Pine Bluff and our other collaborating partners. So let's just give everybody a hand at this time. Our overall goal with this particular project is to really help us as faculty and students to be more engaging in the teaching and learning experience. We've been through higher ed for a number of years, some of us, and we've been teaching for a long period of time. And all we heard for a period of time was just lecture, the drill and kill of lecture. We're trying to ensure that we make our experiences more learner-centered for you as students, but we want you to be engaged in the process. So last time we were together, we started off talking about the article, Navigating the Bumpy Road to LCT. So we're going to have Dr. Lewis and Dr. Haynes and Dr. Patterson. She'll be joining us shortly if she can. I know she had a high school event she had to attend. So we're going to go ahead and continue our dialogue from the last time. So they're going to just give you a brief overview from the PowerPoint, and then we're going to go straight into the dialogue. I just want to remind you, we're getting ready for the National Conference on Learner-Centered Teaching. So let's give that a hand. That will be located in Tulsa, Oklahoma, November 1st through the 3rd. And we're very excited about that particular conference. So if we have any faculty or any students from the Langston campus, the Tulsa campus that would like to attend, please let us know. The RFPs are due today. The information has been out for a while. So if you know of anyone, any colleagues that would like to attend, please contact WeJ or Dr. Nablock at Purdue University, myself, Dr. Olympia McGowan, or either Dr. Zing, Dr. Clark, or any of your professors on this campus if it's something that you're seriously interested in attending, because we want you to attend. And we'll try to make sure you're accommodated through your travel and everything to get there. So I'm going to hand it over, I think at this point, to Dr. Lewis and Dr. Haynes. Dr. Lewis, who is our facilitator, continuation of Navigating the Bumpy Road to LCT. We're really looking at this article and kind of dissecting it, right? And how we can better go about coming about with these concepts to incorporate this into our courses. And we need your help as students and the facility, and of course, receivers of the information. We want you to be engaged in the process. Dr. Lewis is an associate professor and he's graduate coordinator, rehab counseling program at Langston University on the Tulsa campus. Dr. Haynes, he's the associate professor of community and leadership development and director of the Community Innovation Lab at the University of Kentucky. And Dr. Harris, if she's able to join us, she's Associate Professor and Acting Chair of Psychology Department at Langston University, Tulsa campus. So let me hand it over to Dr. Lewis.
Hey, how are you doing, everybody?
Good, Dr. Lewis.
Good deal. Listen, the article pretty much just paraphrased and pretty much talked about when it's described as the bumpy road to student-centered instruction, it's basically just talk about how the initial phase, all the things that happen as it relates to the shock, the denial, the strong emotions against the paradigm shift and the resistance from even from your constituents, not just the students. That's to be expected. But there will be some sense of congruency. Just stay with it. Once the students can find the benefit of it and see how it actually it works for them, not just from a teacher-centered focus. I kind of wanted to shift to allowing Brian to paraphrase the end, because I think there was a lot of questions after he paraphrased at the end that we didn't get a chance to comment on. Are you prepared, Brian, to just give an overview of your portion of the article?
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Lewis. So we're going to open this up for discussion because there were some great questions from the crowd. The bottom line, I think, is just to piggyback off Dr. Lewis here. The bottom line here is that we have been conditioned for anywhere from 13 to 18 to 20 through, 24 now, or 20? We've been conditioned to learn that school and learning of formalized learning is one way. And then when you go into teaching, you replicate that because now your instruction is supposed to be one way. When we shift that responsibility back to the learner, there are some emotional rejections that happen. And as a result of that, there's insecurity on both the part of the student and the instructor. And the emotions that feed off of one another create this dynamic. And the reason for this article is because it really, in basic terms, describes what that dynamic is. But it also really walks through why people quit and maybe critique learner-centered instruction and maybe critique the process because they get to one level and they can't push forward and they don't have enough faith that it'll actually work out. And so as a result of that, they quit and they go back to what is rote and what is traditional in the academic system, which is teacher-centered or lecture-based education. And so that's basically the primary focus of this, is to identify, hold on, I'm going to the chat. Yep, I will do that in just a minute, is to identify what are the characteristics of this. So I'm going back, the PowerPoint really doesn't cover this. It's about much more student engagement at this point. So I'm going to stay here real quick. But these are questions that instructors have had and concerns that instructors have had regarding implementation of learner-centered teaching, okay? But I really want to pull us back even further. So let's open this up to a discussion, because I think the discussion is where we become really engaged in this. And so let's think about, how do we learn if we're outside of the classroom? If I say to you, what is a chupacabra? If you don't understand what a chupacabra is, I don't need to provide you the definition or the cultural context or the cultural relevance of the chupacabra. You have this amazing thing called a telephone or a computer most of the time at your fingertips, to which you can actually learn this on your own. That's called self-directed learning. Dr. Knobloch and I have developed video games that allow individuals to learn scientific terminology on their own by engaging creatively through a video game. And so when you transfer the knowledge to the student, how they would naturally learn, they don't get it in a classroom setting, but they do get it in a life setting. So as educators and as students, I pose a question. Learner-centered teaching transitions the process of knowledge gain or the process of learning to the student. Is that or is that not a life skill? Because I don't know too many times when you get into a workforce or adult life where there's someone teaching you how to do this. YouTube. Is there music somewhere?
Yeah.
That's the music. It sounds like the band playing on one of the campuses.
Yeah, practicing.
Oh. That's awesome. I forgot.
If you're on the main campus, you can't put your phone on hold because it'll play the music.
Oh, thank you.
So my point is, when you transition to a learner-centered paradigm, what you're doing is actually transitioning an individual to think about life circumstances and problem solving in real life. So one of the questions from a student last time was, we need to be taught the definitions, the foundations associated with a certain context before we could think at that higher cognitive level. And I challenge back and I say, why? When you get into life, you don't think at that level. You have to learn the basics in order to succeed and thrive in life. And so why can't we use a learner-centered paradigm to find out the basics of certain aspects to create deeper inquiry and buy-in? And so I'd like other colleagues, Purdue, what are your thoughts on this? And students, what are your thoughts on this? Colleagues from Langston, what are your thoughts about this? Tulsa. So please, let's buy in and have a discussion.
Question again, Brian.
What are your thoughts about learner-centered teaching as a foundation of not only teaching students how to own their own learning, but it's basically a life skill? Because nobody in life is out there going to go ahead and give you a syllabus or a definition of all of the things that you're going to need to learn in life. And so that's the part here where if we continue to think for ourselves and become learner-centered or even self-directed learning, we won't have these strong emotions that we have as being conditioned in the public education system.
This is Ruben Herring from Tulsa, instructor. But if by the time they make it to colleges where they're first learning or thinking about learner-centered teaching, by then the individual aspect of learning your own grades, earning your own grades might be, you know what I'm saying, already so ingrained. If the parents don't know anything about learner-centered teaching, if they send their kids and say, hey, the teachers are supposed to teach you, if they don't have tools and accessibilities to computers and other ways to teach themselves, and then all of a sudden they go to college and they say, hey, we're doing learner-centered teaching without the appropriate advanced dissection of the terminology and really what's going on, there could be a real confusion, a real gap in what's trying to be taught.
It's a wonderful comment and a wonderful point. But I question back. So what you're saying is that they've been conditioned in the public school system for so long that, yeah, we are the first to transition that. How much knowledge have they gained outside the public school system, and how did they learn that?
Well, I mean, if you're blessed and you have a computer in your house or wireless in your neighborhood, you might have, in today's world, access to those type of different learning tools that you were talking about, Google, YouTube and things like that. And once again, I'm an instructor at Langston. I stand in front of the classroom. Sure, and the material we teach isn't to be memorized, but still, I stand in front of the classroom. Everybody looks at me. So the transition period, once again, where do we start? Where is it going to be up to me to take my desk and put it in a circle and stand in the middle, or that's the whole, once again.
This is a great question. No, this is a great question, and it's a great dialogue. I would argue that you, as in your leadership position, are the facilitator of knowledge, right? So you're going to help facilitate knowledge, and you're going to create the educational environment. So yeah, it probably has to start with you. Yeah. And so utilizing the sources that students have access to. And as you said, not everybody has access to the technology, but at an institution of higher learning, there would be a computer lab or some other aspect that they could utilize. It's at that point that we go from sage on the stage to a co-learner with our students. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that because as instructors, we've been not only conditioned as a student, but then we've been conditioned that that's how we teach as well. And so that whole philosophical shift is very difficult. And as I said, instructors go through these stages of emotion just as students do. But it's up to us to change the way that the academic environment shifts so that we can move in this way. And it's not just a yes or no. I think we've mentioned before, Dr. Knobloch, didn't you say that there's a continuum here where we start with active learning techniques and get more comfortable with active learning techniques and discussion-based, and then move slowly more into a more student-centered or learner-centered approach?
Well, I would like to think in the first initial stage, you have to educate the kids to a non-traditional learning approach because they're used to the traditional approach. And which my way of doing it is on the first day of class, I explain to them that this is a shared learning environment. So I set the catalyst up in the beginning to say that the process of learning in my class is not going to be linear. It's not going to be I teach, you learn. It's going to be more reciprocal. You know, I have something to offer, you have something to offer, we have something to offer, and basically Learning Center teaching is saying that when everyone is autonomous, not only in their learning process, but in their delivery process, means what do you know? Take the lead. And so we have, no one wants a weak link in the group. So I'm a part of the group too. Even though I'm the facilitator, I kind of look at it like from a counseling perspective, you know, in the group process, research shows that the group process is just as effective as individual counseling. But the ownership is not just on me to help that person change. The Learning Center teaching paradigm is the same way, that you have to get in your mindset that you're going to bring something to the table up front. Don't wait for me to give it to you, then to say I get it. No, I'm going to have confidence that you bring something to the table day one. And I'm going to integrate that day one. And that's how the paradigm shifts. So it's not that much of a shock when you allow them to integrate the thought process. This whole thing of just saying, hey, it's a shared learning environment. Day one.
By the way, Dr. McGowan, would you turn off the mic in the main campus? We are hearing the music.
I think it might be. Any other thoughts about how we can best transition in the initial stage? Because the whole problem is going to be in the initial stage when people come with the shock. Like, what is this? And people do not want to embrace what they don't understand. So as facilitators, we do have to provide some type of transparency in the process. But like the bumpy road says, just don't give up. They will actually get it and they will feel good about it. Any comments?
I agree with Dr. Lewis that in the end, you know, our job is to try to transfer as much information that that we have learned in an appropriate way, the transfer of information. Absolutely.
Any other comments?
Yeah, this is Neil Knobloch here at Purdue University. When I look at these different stages, it reminds me of another model. I don't know if it's the phone or if it's a band outside the door. I continue to hear music. Thank you. So I see these, and it reminds me of the intercultural competence model. So if you take students outside of their home culture and they experience a different culture, then they're likely to go through 5 stages. And those stages, if I can pull them up, one is denial. The first one's denial. You can see that one is up here. The second one, they then they recognize difference in culture, but then they start judging one culture being better than the other. That's called polarization. You know, it's sorting out this idea of I don't like something. And then the third one in that intercultural competence is called minimization, which really is, okay, we can get through this. You know, there are differences, but we're going to just, you know, basically figure out how to be successful and get along. And then eventually you get to acceptance. And then the fifth one is you get to adaptation, where you truly are trying to embrace the other culture and work with others who you see, you know, were different than you. I see this to actually map up somewhat similar with that, because it makes me think that learner-centered teaching is a different culture than maybe what students and teachers have experienced in their many years of education. And so is it a cultural thing in education that we're talking about, that learner-centered teaching has a different set of assumptions, a different set of feel to it? It's hard to really explain, but you certainly feel it, you experience it, and then people don't know what to do with these emotions. I see the word emotions up there, and they don't know what to do with them, and so it probably needs to be explicitly called out by the teacher that I see that there's some things going on here, let's talk it through, and just trying to help people understand this is probably a different experience they're going through. So those are my 2 cents that I'll throw out on the table. Is it a cultural experience that we're talking about?
This is thank you, Dr. Knobloch. Appreciate that. This is Savon Esters from Purdue University. So as I look at these stages here on the screen, I guess 2 things jump out to me, and that is how similar elements of what I see here is also reflected in one of Dr. Knobloch's favorite theories is social cognitive theory, and this notion of self-efficacy. That is trying to enhance that which helps to enhance students, increase their confidence, self-confidence, if you will. And as we all know, that applies to learning and a host of other behaviors. Because if you look at how these progress, you can argue that as you move from a 1 to an 8, there is some element, whereas 7 states is a return of confidence. So I think that's one interesting observation. And the second is this notion of self-regulation. As we all know, being a self-regulated learner deals with those aspects that allow students to manage their emotions such that they can see through a task, see a task through an end, or see how it can be applied, or see how the engagement in the task can really, there's something that can be obtained from engaging in their learning activity. So I think those 2 areas are things that kind of struck me as I look at these 8 engines or 8 levels, if you will. So that's all I wanted to share. I'll stop there.
I'm going to go back to Dr. Lewis's point. I agree, and I think we're kind of coming to consensus a little bit here. There's a metacognitive piece, or thinking about thinking, right? If you walk in day 1, first of all, you can have them buy into course rules and expectations. That's one way to have student buy-in and begin this process. Another method is to talk about the syllabus. When you're talking about the syllabus, say, these are the expectations that I have. What do you have of each other? This works great, especially with group projects, which all the students seem to hate. If you look along here, what happens if you say, you know what, throughout this course, both of us, and I'm sorry, I will go back. Ruben, this is what your point was. Thank you for that. Was here's what I'm experiencing. Okay, this is my first time trying it, and so I'm experiencing some kickback from you guys. And just be really cognitive of this process as you go through it. And I think that might help everybody's tension as you work through this process of shifting the responsibility back over to the students who you hope will become full-on adult learners and lifelong learners as a result of these processes. And so I think that there's something to be said about talking about this day 1 and maintaining it a theme throughout the semester or year, however long your course is. Dr. O, are there student or other faculty comments from your neck of the woods?
Yes, we're going to open it up and have our students to give some of their questions about it. Give the question again from a student perspective so they can chime in, please.
Well, I'll go back to the original student's question, which I thought was valid and sparked a round 2 of this, and clarify, folks, if I'm wrong on this, but I believe the comment was, and I hear this a lot from other faculty in our College of Ag, about how that the faculty need to set a foundation and then they can move into a learner-centered process from that point. And I question why. And so I want the students to provide an outside view or internal perspective about their experiences with these processes or questions about these processes from both a student and maybe even a future instructor perspective.
Okay. Okay, so students, they want to know what's your perspective on it and how valid you think this process is in the student engagement process, the learner-centered teaching process. Okay, don't be shy. I know you don't like just lecture. Why do you?
Dr. O, this is Reuben Herring. Have any of them had any instruction in learner-centered teaching? What is that? Have they had any classes?
It all has the potential to be.
Okay, you got to speak louder so they can hear you.
Like, I feel like it all has the potential to be learning centered. It depends on how the student is looking at it and their perspective on their own learning. Like if they're there because they actually really want to learn, or if they're there because it has to check off the box on their course requirements.
Okay.
Okay, we had a comment over here.
Well, we can't, I didn't hear the comment.
We got a comment here, Dr. Lewis, right here.
I feel like it also depends on the subject. Certain
Speak louder so they can hear you.
I feel like it also depends on the subject. I feel like for certain courses that may be more difficult and more of a specialty class, such as GIS, GPS, in our agriculture department, that course is a very specialty course. And when I took it, it was very student-centered. The students pretty much worked at their own rate. And while I did appreciate that, I did fall behind a lot because of it. I needed a lot more help because I was falling behind. I was trying to keep up with everyone else, and I wasn't exactly understanding it. So for something like that, yes, we need a foundation, and I feel like it would take a lot more communication with the students as far as just going through the course and making sure that everybody's like understanding what you're learning. But I feel like for different courses, such as my composition courses or English courses, a little bit easier because the subject material is a bit more, it's a bit, well, I wouldn't say easier, but not
It's more teacher directed?
Yeah.
You say your composition is more teacher directed?
Teacher directed, but it also is those courses are a lot easier for students to engage with.
Okay. Okay.
I understand that, in which I agree and don't agree. The problem that I've had when I do not start with learner-centered teaching is that the students come to class not mentally prepared. But if they know up front that I hold everybody accountable from the teaching perspective, then they're going to prepare for first day one just like I'm going to prepare for day one. See, the problem is that I've had for years a number of students expecting for me to do most of the work. And when I test them or quiz them, they're not even doing the reading to interpret what I teach. That's not fair. No one likes a one-way relationship on any level. So with the learner-centered approach, you know from day one what's expected in my class. And I'm gonna have those type of assignments and group assignments and activities that's gonna encourage it. Not from a punitive process in the beginning. It's all development in the beginning. But when I see that they get it, because by the third week, they buy into the process because it's not going nowhere. They get the first case scenario, they get the second case scenario. By the third week, they know what's expected. They taking the lead. You see the product get better. You see their delivery get better. You see their understanding and overall competency of the subject matter getting better. I went from having maybe 80% weak links in my class to maybe only 1 or 2. So it works.
I'm going to follow up. I agree. I'm going to agree and disagree too. Let me ask you this. Do you want your fate of your academic career evaluated by 3 exams throughout the semester? Raise your hand if you prefer the three exam method for lecture-based courses.
Put yourself.
Sounds like a motion.
You're for.
It's not my favorite.
Let's take a vote. No. Let's do the democratic process. Let's take a vote. If he said if you want your fate determined by 3 exams, for example, in a course for that semester, raise your hand for that particular course.
I think it depends on the course that you're taking.
Don't talk all at once. Okay, go ahead.
If it's for like an English course, maybe yes, because students tend to do more better in those type of courses. But if it's for courses such as chemistry, or biochemistry, or organic chemistry, genetics, students are going to want to take more tests just because those courses are harder.
For you.
Correct.
So now you're being individually biased. What I'm asking is, across your curriculum, would you rather have your stuff evaluated by 3 exams, or would you rather have multiple ways to prove your knowledge? And here's why. So raise your hand. 3 exams across the curriculum, lecture-based. Dr. I can't see hands. Can you provide some hands?
Okay.
I feel like you have to take.
Okay, speak up so they can hear you.
I really feel like you have to take it based for value. Like he said, other courses are more straightforward. Like if you're taking an English course, you've been speaking English, you've been writing sentences, you've been preparing yourself to get to paragraphs all your life. But courses like, again, chemistry or psychology is constantly changing. So you can't just take an evaluation of this predetermined knowledge. Take, for instance, 3 or 4 chapters, and that's a test, or 5 or 6 chapters, the next one, that's a test. That's way too much knowledge on a student.
Okay. So again, I'm going back. This is the way that you all learn, right? You say that you have preferences for these particular classes based on the content that have. The periodic table has changed recently. The food pyramid has changed recently. There are constant advancements. What I'm asking is this. If you think that you want the three evaluation method, right? The 3 exam method, which is pretty traditional in many of the large lecture classes across the United States. Let me ask you the follow-up question. How much of that knowledge that you crammed for those exams did you retain long-term?
Don't say none. What percent? Let's do percent. Let's do percent wise. At least 50% that you retained it after you took it. Even 80%, anyone?
Yeah.
So less than 50%.
Okay. What in the 30? About 30%?
Okay, we got a question over here. Go ahead.
This is how I feel like they use chemistry as one of the, accentuating classes, but I feel like it's diverse and different subjects. While in agriculture, we have horticulture. That's kind of like a course now that I feel like we have exams on, and there's such big exams, but not everybody, like you said, like a personal bias question. It might seem personal bias, but like you said, not everybody is on the same, level as everybody else. So that way, as a teacher, as far as teaching goes, it's your ability and teacher's ability to make sure that no student is, of course, failing the course, but, you should get it to the mindset of what can I do to make sure that my class is understanding the essential value of taking quizzes, taking exams, not on an exam-based level. Yeah, for other students, they want that bias based because they want to get it done. They feel like, hey, I can do this. Rather than with some people, we feel like we should have a quiz. We should do more things in class, production-wise, and making sure like the student is able to grasp it rather than let's get all these exams together, let's get all these notes and put it in. Like I say, it can be a strain to students because that's just not our only pertaining class. So I feel like, yes, I believe exams are cool, and they should also, as following, like he said, as students, we should learn if there's a course and they want us to study, yes, we should have those values. But like I say, it should be to where we should have classwork and development work in order to ensure that everybody has the opportunity to pass. And if it's on them and they don't pass, then like you said, that is on them because the teacher has given you the information that you need. So I just kind of feel like it's an everyday thing. Everybody can have it.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Perfect. Let me walk you through one more thing, and then I'm right on par. Everybody's singing on the same cognitive level. I love this. So think about this. How many of you love rubrics? Here's why. And I hear people giggling. Here's why. A rubric says, in order to be intelligent, you reach this potential on this particular project. So those of you who are, like, let's say that you're steeped in English, and there's an English rubric, man, this is a piece of cake assignment. Let's say that your English as a secondary language. This is going to be a beast of assignment for some. But yet you're all held to the same level, right? But the cognitive learning and the development and the effort in one student is quite a bit different than that of the other, just the same as these exams. Now let's flip it. And those are pretty traditional methods of evaluation in a course. Let's flip it. Let's say, like you just articulated, I have heard your argument, and let's roll. On day one, how should you be evaluated? Should you evaluate yourself? Do we need blind peer review? What other methods can we utilize here? What do you think is fair for your content and knowledge evaluation? On the first day of my class, I say, I don't give exams. And everybody rejoices. And I said, that is the worst thing you could do, because it's way tougher to show me the knowledge than it is to regurgitate it and forget it the next day. And they do. They have to prove through role play, through scenarios, through all kinds. And it's different for large lecture courses, but you can have laboratories that work into this, and you can have group projects that work into this. So scope is a different way of managing that. But what would happen if the students had a say in how they were evaluated from day one?
How do y'all feel about that? He said, how would you feel about that if you had the opportunity to develop some of your rubrics and how you are evaluated?
I like what you said. I think that it's a good value. Like,
speak louder so they can hear you.
I feel like it's a good value that is used, like what you said, because it does initiate to students that, like you said, you don't give exams, so you do have to let, students do have to prove themselves. But I feel like sometimes it's necessary for students to prove themselves. They might want to prove themselves, and I feel like that gives everybody the opportunity to at least see that I'm not giving you hard exams, but I want you to prove it's just the knowledge that you want to do. And sometimes, say if the students don't pertain to that and you are being, fluctuating to trying to get both diverse sides. Some students might want exams. You might put an exam in there if the students retain the knowledge and you feel like your class knows it enough. But it's really important, not just the students. As a teacher, I feel like they insist that you should know what your students are capable of doing. That's the whole part of the teaching method. So I feel like as teachers, you should just look at your students and be understanding, like, is this what this student is doing? They're lacking in this. So every day it should be an evaluation. So I kind of like the more evaluation method because I feel like it gives you a grasp of what each student is capable of doing. That way you can help that student that might be struggling because you see they didn't do good on a worksheet or on an assignment. So I feel like that's better than an exam rather than everybody can just fail or struggle in 3 exam classes.
Well, then it comes back to the different learning methods, whether it's direct learning, where the teacher is basically conveying the information, exams are given, quizzes are given, you regurgitate the information, indirect instruction, where the teacher, the professor disseminates the information, kind of facilitates the process, but then you take the social responsibility of your learning process. In other words, you're partnering in with the process, or the social instruction where you work, social learning instruction where you work in cooperative groups, you work in teams, you do projects, and then we didn't even get to it, but eventually you want to get to the point after you work in the teams and the groups, the socialization process, and Levi Vygotsky was real heavy in that. He really believed, he's a theorist and a psychologist, he really believed that students learn in a social context. And Dr. Lewis was talking about it last month when we was talking about it. He said, I don't mind releasing control long as I know that learning is taking place in the classroom. whether they're receiving the learning from me or whether they're receiving the learning from each other. But that authentic learning is taking place. I was teaching it last night, and the last one is independent learning. And I guess that's what Dr. Lewis was saying he would like to see more of, is that after we do all this learner-centered teaching aspect, whether it's direct instruction or indirect instruction, social learning instruction, we want to see that you'll go back and work independently, whether it's in groups or on your own, and make sure you're taking control of your education and the learning process, rather than just coming to class, not being prepared. And sometimes, I understand life goes on. Life does happen and things do happen in life. I understand that. But the thing is, with the learner-centered teaching approach, is not taking so much of taking away the way that you've been doing it all along, but incorporating these concepts slowly to give you some responsibility in this particular learning process, seeing it as a partnership. I guess you can say it like that. I got one question for you, because I want to know how you feel about this, okay? Because sometimes in these large classroom sizes, you don't get that one-on-one. How do y'all feel about the instructor-student relationship? How important is that to you? Or is that really not important to you? Is that a fair question, Brian and Philip? How do you feel about that teacher-student process? Is that important to you? How important is that to you, that relationship?
You repeat the question?
That instructor-student relationship, building that relationship, how important is that to you? Because for you to implement the learner-centered teaching concept, the relationship, he mentioned about the foundation. The foundation has a lot to do with the relationship. So how important is that to y'all? Go ahead.
Oh, well, I feel like it's a very important.
Speak loud so we can hear you.
It's a very important process, because without a natural bond between the student and the teacher, you have no foundation to basically encrypt into the student of basically that they can trust you, not just trusting you, but most students, if you don't have a bond with your student, it's hard for them to take information from you, whether a student is feeling like, okay, he's teaching the course, but I can see he's evaluating and he's not really, concerned about us. A lot of students shy away from teachers like that, and they see it's like more exam work, and then they're telling the students that all y'all are failing and stuff like that. And, students trying to shy away because it's like, okay, well, you're not doing anything to process or helping us. But it's up to the student as well. I just feel like without a bond, I guess with certain students, you kind of just, it's very important, because honestly, like without that bond, you really don't have students really wanting to show their full ability. It's really all in students, it's really all in us as well. Like they say, if you want to learn, you're going to ask this teacher. If you're failing in class, you need to ask the teacher. So it's like you have to be comfortable in order and willing to pass that course in order to attain more information. So yeah, like you said, it's very important.
And that's part of the learner-centered process, okay? Brian, Dr. Lewis, anyone? Dr. NeBlock, Dr. Esters, do you have any other questions for our students?
I do. This is Emma from Langston, Tulsa. I would like to ask the student what the student expected from the teacher in the classroom setting. Teaching or guiding them to learn something.
Okay, speak loud, speak loud.
Just to clarify, he's asking the question, what's important? Is it to teach them or to guide them? Is that your question?
Yeah, come closer. This is good conversation, and we're going to
please
restate the question, Dr. Payman.
Yes, what the student expected from teacher in the classroom, teaching them or guiding to learn something.
Or both?
I think it's a combination. Well, I know it kind of gets specific to the university to me because each one has its own culture. And so with that, you have certain type of students that come in. So I think to some level, you need to guide in order to level set. In order for everybody to come in and be on the same page, there needs to be some type of guidance to a certain point. Then after you have level set the classroom to the best of abilities, I know it's not going to be a completely level, then you can go in and teach them this information. I feel like that's the best approach to it. It's not a either or, I think it's both.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, our students and faculty, they have to go to their next class. You want to go ahead, you and Dr. Lewis, can you go ahead and close it out, please? Thank you, Dr. Payman. That was an excellent question.
Well, I think what we're setting up for the conference is to get some understanding of what's going to actually take place in the conference. And so the conference is actually providing transparency so that we're not just trying to overthrow the government, but what we are trying to do is open up a conversation to a different paradigm shift in which I feel like it's going to be very conducive as we move forward within the next generation. And then the next generation of learners, they're trying to be very autonomous in other areas. And what we're saying from an academic perspective is that we're not resistant to what you bring to the table. You have anything to conclude, Brian?
No, I think that was well stated. I think that we really have to operationalize, and it's not just going to take one definition what learner-centered processes are. I think what we got to be careful of is teaching evaluations, empathy and rapport building. Those are very different than learner-centered instruction, and I think that we're blending some of this, but it's a good foundation for us to begin, and those who need to will attend the conference can really start to differentiate the aspects of learner-centered teaching versus pedagogy at large.
Okay, Dr. Esters, Dr. LeBlanc, Weejay, do you have any comments?
I'm just saying it was a good conversation, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody down in Tulsa and Langston campus in a couple weeks.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, and we'll just continue the dialogue at the conference, and thank you for your participation today. Let's give a great hand to all of our students and professors that attended today. Dr. Clark and Dr. Z for helping to set up the seminar today. Okay, so for the month of November, we won't have a seminar because we're getting ready for we'll have the conference in the month of November. So if you're interested in attending, please let one of us know. Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye.